Hey everyone, I'm David Sheeler and I'm a Communication Studies Bachelor of Science student at Minnesota State University, Mankato. I'm also minoring in Leisure Program Management through the Recreation, Parks, and Leisure Services Department. I'm here to tell you about my experiences at Minnesota State as a Communication Studies student. So in this video, we'll be covering how I think the program has met my needs by meeting the 5 learning outcomes as established by the faculty of the department. And we'll also cover what those 5 learning outcomes are. Which learning outcome I think I've grown the most in, which learning outcome I think I've grown the least in, and some of my critiques of the program. But first, let's start with why I chose Communication Studies. I'm a Communication Studies student after I changed my major my junior year from Biomedical Sciences. I decided I wanted to go into university, higher education, and administration. I talked to some of the university administrators on campus, and they were all undergraduate communications majors. The choice seemed natural. So what are the 5 learning outcomes? The 5 learning outcomes are how to give an effective presentation, how communication affects relationship building, how context affects communication, that I've engaged in productive field-based research, and what symbols are used to communicate. The easiest way to show you that I've met these 5 learning outcomes is to walk you through my electronic portfolio, available through eFolio Minnesota. Let's go onto the site.
Welcome to my electronic portfolio. Here you will find a full explanation of my proficiency within the 5 learning outcomes of the Communication Studies Bachelor of Science program at Minnesota State University, Mankato. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will find 5 subpages, 1 page to represent each of the learning outcomes. It is easiest for me to present my proficiency in each learning outcome by walking you through this electronic portfolio. Proficiency is determined by use of course materials in meeting the learning outcomes. Under public presentation, you'll notice I have 2 examples, one from the Homecoming Budget Proposal or Real-World Speech from Communication Studies 333 or Advanced Public Communication. Below it you'll find the JED Foundation presentation, which was an advocacy presentation, also part of Advanced Communication. And I will draw your attention to the right-hand side of the screen, where each page will also have reflections, which supplement and explain the proficiency displayed by each example. Under Communications and Relationships, you'll see that I have a paper explaining the interaction between computer-mediated communication and the social exchange theory. I also have a presentation on the effects of listening on relationship building. In an effort to display my proficiency of context of communication, I have a communication culture audit for an organization I am a member of on campus, as well as a cultural examination of context through the intercultural praxis, as taught in Communication 203, Intercultural Communication. Under Research, I have 2 examples of my ability to perform Communication Studies research. The first example comes from Introduction to Argument, Communication Studies 150, and uses syllogistic form. The second example, Managerial Communication, is an excerpt of a larger senior seminar research study. This part happens to be the literature review. Again, each section and each subpage has 2 reflections relating to the corresponding display of proficiency. Lastly, under an understanding for symbols as communication tools, I have an explanation of emotional performance on behalf of college-bound students and their parents from Conflict Management or Communication Studies 445, and a slam poetry piece performed from Interpretation of Literature, Communication Studies 310. I hope that the electronic portfolio can provide you all of the examples necessary to prove proficiency in each of the 5 learning outcomes, and that by proving my proficiency within each of the 5 learning outcomes, that it is clear the department has made a great case and a great program which met all of its objectives.
I hope it's obvious which learning outcome I enjoy the most. And by enjoy the most, it should also be the one that I've experienced the most growth in. That is, giving public presentations. I've been able to give public presentations so many times throughout the years as a communication studies student, and for that I thank the department. But outside of the department, I've also given presentations as the Minnesota State Student Association Vice President to University Administration. I've given presentations to my general fraternity at its International Assembly. I've given presentations as an orientation student lead to new students and their families. And I've also given presentations in front of large student audiences as homecoming events chair for campus. It would be great to say then that the Communication Studies Department has given all of that ability to me. And it has. When I was a high school senior, I was our senior class president at Toma Senior High School. You want to know what happened? I was told I had to give the graduation address, and my gosh, I had a panic attack right before graduation because I had actually avoided public speaking in high school by taking creative writing instead. I couldn't do it. I didn't know how to do it, and I was too nervous. No program is perfect, however, and I think a lot of my fellow classmates would agree that there is a learning outcome that I am not as proficient as I perhaps should be, or that I could have grown as much as I could have in. Using symbols to communicate is great in concept, but I'm left wondering, what does the department mean when they say symbols to communicate? I understand emotional performance, I understand technological symbolism, and I understand both written and spoken word communication, but I have to wonder if I had the coursework available to display that proficiency. I don't like to dwell on the negative though, so let's move on. The program here at Minnesota State has been amazing. I've really learned a lot and experienced a lot through the curriculum. That doesn't mean that I don't have my criticisms. At times the courses felt too organic, too free-form, where we had to wonder if we were going to make it through the syllabus and to the learning outcome that we were told we would meet in that course. I wish that the program had not supported students who did not want to be supported, or who did not want to support themselves as much as it did. I worked hard in my studies, and sometimes it felt as though the department was carrying students along that didn't support themselves. Finally, I wish that the department had more of a presence on campus. I wish that students didn't have to ask me, wow, you have the easiest major on campus, don't you? Because no, I don't, because I put my effort into it. But I feel as though the department hasn't done enough to tell students how rigorous our program actually is. Ultimately, I have had a positive experience. I very much enjoyed the faculty, and I've made some really great networked connections through the Communication Studies program at Minnesota State. I know that the choice that I made to change my major to Communication Studies was a positive one, and one that has only opened doors for me for many years to come.